Hello and welcome back to the verbose mode by Tax here in Spring IO 2025, and this time we are turning the verbose mode on with Sébastien Deleuze. Welcome.
Thanks.
Sébastien, you are a part of the core Spring team.
Yeah.
And obviously there are tons of you here at Spring IO. I think now that's the flagship of Spring conferences. Am I right?
Yeah.
Like amazing people here, including yourself and Jürgen Holler and Rod Johnson even, and obviously Josh Long that we interviewed yesterday, and it's an amazing set of people here, and obviously this is why the conference is sold out.
Yeah.
People want to hear from you, people want to see you, and that's obviously very, very exciting. And you have a couple of very exciting initiatives that you worked in, and let's start with null-safety with JSpecify annotations. What are we talking about?
So we are talking about trying to remove null pointer exception from production. So something very frequent because basically null safety is implicit in a Java type system. And so we want to make everything explicit via some additional annotation. So we have been working for 5 years on JSpecify with other companies like Google, JetBrains, Uber, etc. in order to introduce a set of 4 annotation, related specification, and some tooling support like IntelliJ ID support, null-away, Gradle, or Maven plugin, in order to check null safety with Java like we do with Kotlin. So basically, if you have some mismatch in terms of null safety, you can catch it at development time instead of waiting, deploying on production and getting some errors Friday night, and you need to redeploy everything. So it's really about bringing the safety that we enjoy on Kotlin side to the wider Java ecosystem without breaking APIs.
I have a lot of questions. First of all, don't we already have annotations for null safety?
A lot. So this is the funny part, is that there is a gazillion of variants for null labels. So if you check in your class path, you likely have 2, 3, 4, 5 variants already. And so the key difference compared to, for example, GSR 305, which is a popular but dormant GSR that never materialized, IntelliJ JetBrains variant, there is a Jakarta variant. This is really the specification. So really, there is just 4 annotations, so it's really easy to introduce your own null label annotation, but define properly the semantics, define the proper specification that allow any tooling vendor, IntelliJ ID, null-away, checker, Eclipse to implement the logic in the same way. It's super involved.
I'm obviously thinking about XKCD coming here.
Sure.
Right, so we had 14 competing standards.
Yeah.
It's terrible. We need to standardize. Next thing you know, we have 15 competing standards.
No, that's
how that is going to be different.
So that's different because we see already quite an adoption. I mean, Google is a big Java shop. Spring is going to use that. So not just on Spring Framework like we were doing since, I think I introduced with Jürgen, the null safety support with GSR 305 that are meta-annotating our own Spring annotation in 2017, 8 years ago. The big difference is that here we have a properly defined dependency, Apache 2, properly defined specification, and we already see adoption quite a lot. So Google is adopting it, Spring is adopting it. We have also GraphQL, Gradle, etc. So the adoption is already quite advanced, and we were really missing. We have no existing solution with both annotation, specification, proper open source license, and something that is not tied to a tooling. For example, Checker Framework is providing its own annotation, but something a bit neutral with proper specification that allow to target, to define, for example, null safety of generic types. This is a match because this is very complex, and this is why it took 5 years to define everything. 1.0 is released, and the scope will be maybe a bit wider because JSpecify the name is not just about null safety.
Of course.
But it already took 5 years to release 1.0, so we wanted to ship that and get adoption, and then after we may introduce check return value or some additional semantics.
And this is not a GSR.
This is not a GSR, but there is a related JEP. So interestingly, Around the same time, I think we released gspecify 1.0. Basically, there was a draft JEP part of Project Valhalla that is coming from the performance angle. So basically, the idea is to introduce support for nullable fields in order with Project Valhalla and with value classes, etc., to perform some runtime optimization. And so in addition to nullable fields, they have defined some special syntax with exclamation mark for nullable, but also exclamation mark for non-null in order to add to the Java type system the null safety. And we think there will be some bridge between gspecify and this upcoming JEP that may take quite a long time to mature because null safety is very complex. And if you want to implement in Java C all the null safety checks, and believe me, it will take a bit of time.
I have no doubt. Which brings me to my next question. We already have a language that does null safety out of the box, and it looks like it's doing great, and it looks like whoever looks for null safety just uses Kotlin those days, which works great with Spring, and I think Spring is one of the largest promoters of Kotlin in the industry as a community. So my question is, why even bother? Just use Kotlin.
So first, you may know I'm a big fan of Kotlin, but I think it's really about the community to decide what they use. In fact, I think Kotlin had a lot of influence on Spring and the JVM ecosystem on those topics. And clearly, we want to make it possible for the Java workloads that are so huge everywhere to benefit from the same things. And so, of course, Kotlin support will be better because the default is non-null, and that makes a huge difference because Java will not be able to change the default. So that means you will have type exclamation mark everywhere in your code base, or you will use gspecify to specify that basically at package level you say the default is non-null, and so you have a better syntax. But I think it's fine. There is going to be a bridge between both. So Kotlin is able to interpret natively gspecify annotation and interpret that as a kind of definition of null safety. That means that any Java program using gspecify will look like idiomatic from a Kotlin perspective, and the Kotlin program will have full null safety for those Java workloads, which is pretty cool because we have a lot of JVM workloads that are basically used in Kotlin.
It is pretty cool. And speaking about Kotlin, you have other news as well?
Yeah, so I'm just back from Kotlin Conf. I was yesterday at Kotlin Conf, so I did Kotlin Conf Day 1 and Spring I/O Day 2. And in the Kotlin Conf keynote, JetBrains and indirectly us announced basically a strategic partnership between Spring and JetBrains around Kotlin and also a bit IntelliJ IDEA. And so the idea is that we are going to turn the organic collaboration that we had from Spring Framework 5, basically 2017, into something more strategic, more involved, with investment on both sides to reach the next level. So basically, we are working on this null safety effort, which is part of a better support for Spring in Kotlin work, because all the Spring APIs, including Spring AI, Spring Security, Spring Boot, etc., will provide a kind of idiomatic null-safe API. Kotlin team is going to rewrite totally Kotlin Reflect, which is a it's based on a subset of Kotlin 1 compiler, and it's not really designed to be used at runtime, so they are going to re-implement it with Kotlin JVM metadata, which is a Kotlin 2-based library, already first-class supported on Android side, and so they are going to remove the overhead, which is currently around 15% of memory consumption and memory, to 1 or 2%, so very much improvement. We are going to translate also the most popular Spring guides, provide code snippets in Kotlin in addition to Java. And finally, we are going to do new features that I'm going to announce in my talk this afternoon, but basically we want to make this more first class and provide more Kotlinish way to define beans, be able to leverage Kotlin multi-platform to share the logic between front-end and back-end, leverage more Kotlin WASM. So there is pretty exciting stuff that are coming up.
It is pretty cool, absolutely. And as you mentioned, the collaboration already existed, and Spring is one of the reasons why Kotlin is so popular. So it's great to see that now it's official, and it will probably mean even more of Kotlin adoption in our community, which we both welcome.
Yeah.
Sebastian, thank you very much. It was great.
Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely, my pleasure. We'll see you in next episodes very, very soon. Sebastian, we'll see you in the next conference, whenever it will be.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.